have never filmed here sitting on the floor. So it's like a whole new world. It is so hot. Welcome to my nonsense. This is my first video like this, and there's a reason for it. I have been on the wonderful world of TikTok, and I was like the last person ever to download the app. I was like so against it for such a long time. I didn't want it, but now I pretty much am on there all the time. I've never posted anything, but I've developed a very strong liking for book talk, and so I came to YouTube to try to find some like recommendations for books that aren't recommended all the time, and it is so hard to do that. Like, I couldn't find really any videos from anybody recently, at least, that are recommending books that aren't, you know, the same old. So I decided, why not do like the book tag questions for like my first book video? Because if you guys follow me on Instagram, you know I love to read. That's like one of my favorite things to do. Of course, I love makeup. We're not going to stray away from makeup. I'm still going to do makeup. But just to have a little bit of a difference, I guess, in content, I thought maybe doing something like this would be awesome. So I'm sitting on the floor in my office today. My desk where I film for like my tutorial stuff is actually right over there. And this is 2 of my 4 bookshelves. Now, not all the books, obviously, that I have are pictured here. I have like 300, I think. I have a list on my phone of all of them, but I'm gonna recommend or do the book questions tag about some books here today that I picked out. Some of these I think are more mainstream. Most of them are not. And most of these are books that I've talked about with people who have never heard of them. So that was kind of the thought process, I guess, behind me picking some of these things, because I wanted to do something, like I said, that wasn't repetitive and things that were new. Because you see a bunch of Colleen Hoover books on TikTok. You see a lot of, for some reason, every other book from Blood and Ash, you see those a lot. But I wanted to give recommendations for things that were different. So that is what today is. Eggs is here as well, since I'm sitting on the floor. All my cats are hanging out. Here's Eggy. He's freaking out as to why I'm sitting on the floor filming. But let's get started. A book that you tell people is your favorite. For me, that is this. This is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I can zoom you guys in just a smidge because some of these books are bigger than others, so I don't want to like crop them out entirely. This is my favorite book. I read this when I was in 8th grade for the first time. I think I've read it 2 or 3 times now. It's not very long. I just discovered the other day that this book has been banned, which I don't understand why. This is, like I said, my favorite book. I recommend this a lot to people, especially since it's not very long. It's pretty short. You can get through this fairly quickly. So I'll read the synopses. I'll read the synopses of the books that I have them. One of them doesn't. The sleeve is missing, so I'll just have to look it up on Goodreads. But this says, one of them laughed, then cussed me out in a low voice. I couldn't think of anything to say. There just isn't a whole lot you can say while waiting to get mugged, so I kept my mouth shut. Need a haircut, greaser? The medium-sized blonde pulled a knife out of his back pocket and flipped the blade open. I finally thought of something to say. No, I was backing up away from that knife. Of course I backed right into one of them. They had me down in a second. They had my arms and legs pinned down, and one of them was sitting on my chest with his knees on my elbows. And if you don't think that hurts, you're crazy. I fought to get loose and almost did for a second. Then they tightened up on me, and the one on my chest slugged me a couple of times. So I lay still, swearing at them between gasps. A blade was held against my throat. How'd you like that haircut to begin just below the chin? This is amazing. It says here, as timely now as it was when it was written nearly 45 years ago, The Outsiders is a dramatic and enduring work of fiction that has the power to affect readers' lives and stay with them forever. This is a platinum edition cover. This is still sold. I just saw it the other day in Barnes & Noble. It doesn't have this cover, but this is the platinum edition cover. Caitlin actually bought this for me for my birthday years ago, because like I said, I read it the first time in 8th grade for actual, like, it was a school assignment, and I loved it so much. This is an amazing read. It really does kind of leave you thinking for a little bit, and it is sad too, so like it has that aspect as well, but it really is so good, so good. So this is the book that I always tell people is my favorite. Although now that I've gotten older, I've found things that I really enjoy, but I still like, this still just has a special place in my heart. So I think for at least now, it's still my favorite. Question 2 is a book that is your guilty pleasure. For me, Eggs is hanging out over here. That would be this. This is Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. I have read the entire Twilight series. It's not really a saga anymore, in my opinion. I have read the entire thing, including The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner, and this is my favorite one out of all of them. And I say that this is my guilty pleasure because this book in particular, at least from what I have seen online, had a lot of mixed opinions. Some people really liked it, some people really hated it. It is a thicker book than especially the last one, but I really enjoyed it. In my opinion, out of all of the books, this one is my favorite. Keep that as you will. But this says, I can't sleep. I remembered answering her question more fully. I don't know where I got silly from. She was silent for a moment. At all? She asked. Never. I breathed. As I met her penetrating gaze, read the surprise and the sympathy there, I abruptly yearned for sleep. Not for oblivion, as I had before. Not to escape boredom, but because I wanted to dream. Maybe if I could be unconscious, if I could dream, I could live for a few hours in a world where she and I could be together. She dreamed of me. I wanted to dream of her. She stared back at me, her expression full of wonder. I had to look away. I could not dream of her. She should not dream of me. So obviously this is Twilight. I mean, everybody, I think, and their mother has heard of the Twilight saga, like the movies and everything. I've seen all the movies. I own all the movies. Like I said, I own all the books. I've read all the books. Blah, 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 blah. This is told from Edward's point of view, which I thought was more interesting than Bella's, in my opinion. It was way more not only interesting but also kind of thought-provoking at the same time, because he has his reasons that he kind of goes through in this book as to why he can't do what he wants to do with Bella and why he behaves the way that he does. And obviously in Bella's point of view, you don't understand that. So then when you come in and you read this, you're like, okay, things really make sense. And it's, you know, like you can kind of connect the pieces together. I'm trying not to give anything away in my reviews, in case you haven't read these, in case you haven't read any of the Twilight books. I read all of the books, and then this one was the last one that I read. In my opinion, I thought that was the best way to go. This is like a Twilight retelling, so like Twilight is from Bella's point of view, this is from his point of view. So you could read them like back to back. I read this one very last, so I think it doesn't really matter. This is a recent publish, I think. I've had it for like 2 years or so. 2020, so yeah, about 3 years old. But I've had it for about 2 years now. I really like it, and this is what I tell people is my guilty pleasure whenever they ask. This one, I just really like it. And also, some of these questions were really hard for me to answer because I didn't want to use the same book for multiple things, and I could have, but I really tried not to. Question 3, a book everyone loved but you didn't. So I actually got rid of this book. If I don't really like them or I have no desire to keep them, usually I will either donate them, I'll give them to my sister. Sometimes I'll sell them back to Half Price Books. That's like a rarity. But a book that everybody loved and I just didn't was The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I think that's how you say his last name. I did not care for this, and I think part of the reason is I read it last like November, and it's obviously written for like preteen type of, you know, audience, and that's not me. So I think had I read it when I was that age, I probably would have loved it, like The Outsiders. But that, to me, The Outsiders had definitely more of like a thought-provoking type of thing behind it, and it has a lot more like intense situations. You know, I'm trying my best not to give away anything, like I said, and it's really hard. But this says, This is off from Goodreads. This is their summary. Standing on the fringes of life offers a unique perspective, but there comes a time to see what it looks like from the dance floor. This haunting novel about the dilemma of passivity versus passion marks the stunning debut of a provocative new voice. This is the story of what it's like to grow up in high school. More intimate than a diary, Charlie's letters are singular and unique, hilarious and devastating. We may not know where he lives. We may not know to whom he is writing. All we know is the world he shares. Caught between trying to live his life and trying to run from it puts him on a strange course through uncharted territory. The world of first dates and mixtapes, family dramas and new friends. The world of sex, drugs, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show, when all one requires is that the perfect song on that perfect drive to feel infinite. I've never seen the movie. I own the movie. I've never actually seen it, so maybe I need to watch that. But like I said, I read this like last November. I actually have it dated, yeah, November 2nd, 2022 is when I finished it. I just didn't love this. To me, it was boring. It was really hard for me to keep my focus with this. And again, like I said, it's written for a younger audience, so had I read it when I was younger, I may have loved it. So like, take that as you will, but this for me just really wasn't my cup of tea. It just wasn't my thing. I actually ended up giving this away. I donated it because like I said, I had no desire to keep it, but I did read it and it just wasn't my favorite thing in the world. I just couldn't get into it. It took me a really long time to finish, and it's a really thin book. It's only 213 pages, so it should not have taken me nearly as long as it did to finish it. I just couldn't get into it. It just wasn't my thing. So that would be a book that I think I see this recommended all the time still, and it just isn't for me. A book you read the fastest. So that would be this. This is part of a series. This is Close to Home by Robert Dugoni, I think is how you pronounce his last name. This is a part of the Tracy Crosswhite series. I am obsessed with her. Okay, I am obsessed with her. I read this, I think, in like a day, maybe, and it's, you know, it's a decent size. It's not huge, it's not super tiny, but I love Tracy Crosswhite, and I love the way Robert writes. Like, it captivated me from the first book, and there's I think 10 in the series. I'm missing 2, and then there's 1 coming out in October, I believe it is, and I am totally getting them. I need to get them. This is amazing. If you love thriller, mystery, crime solving type things, this whole series is magnificent. Like I said, I do own like a ton of them. I don't own them all. I could have brought them all out here, but because this is the one I read the fastest, I thought this was appropriate here. So this back, keep in mind, this is not the first book in the series. I think this is book 4 or 5. Let me see if it tells me on the inside. This is book 5, I think, according to the inside. This says, while investigating the hit-and-run death of a young boy, Seattle homicide detective Tracy Crosswhite makes a startling discovery. The suspect is an active duty serviceman at a local naval base. After a key piece of evidence goes missing, he is cleared of charges in a military court, but Tracy knows she can't turn her back on this kind of injustice. When she uncovers the driver's ties to a rash of recent heroin overdoses in the city, she realizes that this isn't just a case of the military protecting its own. It runs much deeper than that, and the accused wasn't acting alone. For Tracy, it's all hitting very close to home. As Tracy moves closer to uncovering the truth behind this insidious conspiracy, she's putting herself in harm's way, and the only people she can rely on to make it out alive might be those she can no longer trust. This whole series is magnificent. Like I said, if you like crime solving, thriller, mysteries, all of these are just amazing. I cannot recommend this whole world to you enough. Like, it is amazing. I don't see anybody talk about anything that Robert has written. I think he has like 2 or 3 series. He has one that I want to get really badly, but that is rather here or there. I love Tracy. I love the world that he's created, and I just really enjoy the way that he has written his characters so in depth. Like, you really do feel like you know them and like you're in their world, which is something I really appreciate. It's not something that every author can do, and not all of these books are like that, but this is a really good kind of, example of that. Like, it's really, really good. Like I said, I read this in like a day, I think, and it's beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I've never seen anybody recommend that book, so, or any of them. So that's, you need to read it. Just trust me. A book that deserves more hype. So obviously I could have said anything by Robert Dugomez. So my answer for this, I had to go back and like really think about this, because like I said, most of these I could recommend for a book that deserves more hype, but my answer is going to be this one. This is The Exceptions by David Cristofano. The sleeve, I think it's actually called like a dust cover or something, I call it a sleeve, is missing for this book. I have like 2 or 3 books that don't have the sleeves. I did have this one at one time, and I moved and I have no idea what happened to it. So this is just the hardcover version. It's just solid black, so I'll have to find it on Goodreads and read to you what the Goodreads note are. This is amazing. This again is kind of like a mystery crime thriller. What exactly is this like labeled as? Romance, mystery, drama, crime, mystery, thriller. So like, yeah, I was on the right path. I really liked this. I read this when I was still in high school. I think I was like a junior, maybe a sophomore. I really liked this. This is something that I think really deserves more hype. I've never heard anybody talk about anything by David Cristofano or him as an author in general. So that's one of the reasons why I pulled this book out of the 300 and something that I have, because I've never heard anybody really talk about it. And this is a really good book. I think people need to read this. And the notes that Goodreads has says, as part of the Bavaro clan, one of the most powerful and respected families in organized crime, Jonathan knows what he must take out Melody Grace McCartney, the woman whose testimony can lock up his father and disgrace his entire family. He can't bring himself to do it. Had Jonathan kept his silence, Melody and her parents would never have been identified and lured into witness protection, able to run but never to hide. So he keeps her safe the only way he knows how, by vowing to clean up his own mess while acting as her shield. But as he watches her take on another new identity and yet another new town, becoming a beautiful but broken woman, Jonathan can't get her out of his mind or his heart. From the streets of Little Italy to a refuge that promises a fresh start, Jonathan will be forced to choose between the life he's always known, the destiny his family has carved out for him, and a future unlike anything he's ever imagined. I feel like some of those words are not super great. This is book 2. I think this is told from Jonathan's point of view, and then the girl she used to be, I think, is told from Melody's point of view. I've never read that one. I didn't even know that it was part of like a duo until just now. This is really good. This is thought-provoking, but it also is, hello, it is also wonderful and kind of keeping your attention, which I really enjoyed. And to be this thick, that is something that can be hard to do sometimes. I don't think there are really any pages in here that don't need to be in here. Like, sometimes I feel like when books are this big, authors kind of put in what I describe as filler pages just to kind of move it along and keep it longer. But this book I don't think needs that. Like, it does have the pages obviously where it's telling you like what's happening, where they are, but I don't think that it doesn't relate to the story. Like, I think it really does keep, what are you doing? I think it really does keep the story exactly where it needs to be. And Eggy, what are you doing? He's playing, I think, with a hair tie. I'm not sure what he has, but he's running around here like crazy. What are you doing? There's a table right here and he's sitting right here. And obviously he's climbing all over me, but that's Eggs. I really enjoy this. I think this is a really good recommendation if you are into romance but you want to get into more of like a thriller mystery type thing. This would be a really good place to start. And again, I've never seen anybody talk about it, so that was my recommendation for that. I need to hurry up because this video is going to be long. A book you have reread the most. Now, most of these recommendations I think I have read more than once. I think so. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books here that I have read more than once. But I think the one that I have reread the absolute most would be The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. This is the movie cover version. Like, I got this right when the movie was getting ready to come out. Like, it has the pictures and stuff on the inside. I have reread this, I think, 2 or 3 times. I know at least twice, but I don't know if it's 2 or 3. Like I said, I've reread The Outsiders as well multiple times, and I've read some of these upcoming books more than once as well, but I think this one I've reread the absolute most. This is young adult. I don't know anybody who really hasn't heard of this, either the book or the movie. I have both. I enjoy both. I do think the book is better, but that's the case for most scenarios. So this says, despite the tumor shrinking medical miracle that has bought her a few years, Hazel has never been anything but terminal. Her final chapter inscribed upon diagnosis. But when a gorgeous plot twist named Augustus Waters suddenly appears at Cancer Kids support group, Hazel's story is about to be completely rewritten. Insightful, bold, irreverent, and raw, The Fault in Our Stars brilliantly explores the funny, thrilling, and tragic business of being alive and in love. So this is definitely like a young adult romance. I really like this. It's filthy because I've reread it so many times. If you're looking for something easy, because this is definitely an easy read, I've read most of John Green's work. Most of it is more of like an easy read. It's targeted for like a young adult audience, and I think it's perfect for that. But it's also really nice if you are, you know, I'm in my pretty much mid-20s, and it's really nice if you need just like a palate cleanser of something that is easy to understand. Sometimes I think books can try to be so intelligent sounding that they lose the reader, and these are not that. So I'm not saying that they're childish, because there are definitely points in here in particular that are really just, they kind of sit with you for a minute. This book is sad. I'm not gonna, like I said, ruin anything, but it definitely has a sad part, and I think when you realize what The Fault in Our Stars is, you're like, oh, like it does not explain to you directly in the book. It's something that I think you kind of develop with your own opinion, which I really do like, because you can discuss this with other people. And this is a book that was really popular for quite a while, I think when I was like a freshman in high school, but nobody really talks about John Green anymore. I personally still enjoy John Green. I've read, like I said, majority of his work. I own everything he's ever written and published, but I haven't read everything. But I did read all of Hank Green's work. There's 2 books that he had, and that's the topic for a different video, but I enjoy this. I think this is, like I said, really good for like a palate cleanser. Even now, I've reread it multiple times. I don't see myself parting with this. I know, again, a lot of people are more focused on what is super popular right now, and I understand wanting the hype about all of that, but also I like things that are a little bit older, as you guys can probably see here. Like, this was written in 2012 or published in 2012, so like it's not super old, but according to like TikTok, this is old. Now, some of these things are older than this, but I really like this, and I won't dwell on it too much because, like I said, this video is going to be really long. And then a book from a genre you typically don't read. So I don't typically read nonfiction. It's just not really my cup of tea. Now, some of it I do like, but I don't want to feel like I'm reading a textbook. That's not my thing. And I think a lot of it does seem like you're reading a textbook. This is Talking with Serial Killers by Christopher Barry D. This is nonfiction. I really enjoyed this. So if you don't know, maybe this is your first video here, I was a psychology major for about 6 years. That was like my thing. I still really enjoy psychology. Some of the books around me are psychology. I don't think any of them are actually in frame. I don't think any of them are actually in frame for you, but I know there's one on the top shelf up there. But that's completely beside the point. Even if you didn't study psychology, this is something that I think people would really enjoy. So this is Christopher, the author. He goes in and he interviews serial killers, and he writes down basically what they say and everything, and kind of like the reason behind it in this book. And it is disturbing. So if you are squeamish, probably not for you. Like some of the things that is written in here, I still think about to this day, like, wow, that's somebody actually said that. So if you kind of get a little, maybe not the best read for you, or if you are a little bit more on the sensitive side to like horror and things like that, maybe not the best read for you. But this is really good. So it says, Christopher Barry D is the man who talks to serial killers. A world-renowned investigative criminologist, he has gained the trust of murderers across the world, entered their high-security prisons, and discussed in detail their shocking crimes. The killer's pursuit of horror and violence is described through the unique audio tape and videotape interviews which the author conducted deep inside the bowels of some of the world's toughest prisons. Christopher Barry D has collated these interviews into this astounding, disturbing book, which since its first publication has gone on to become a true crime classic. Not only does he describe his meetings with some of the world's most evil men and women, he also reproduces verbatim their very words as they describe their crimes. In doing so, he allows the reader a glimpse into the inner workings of the people who have committed the worst crime possible, to mercilessly take the life of another human being. I bought this when I was in Scotland. It still has the Scottish sticker on the back, but I really like this. Now I did buy his Talking with Psychopaths and something, like I have two, like Talking with Psychopaths is one. I didn't really care for that one. This one, in my opinion, is much better. And this is like true crime, obviously, but like it is, like I said, more disturbing if you are a little bit squeamish. Definitely not for you. But if you are interested in true crime and you really like nonfiction, or if you're similar to me and you don't really care for nonfiction, you don't want to feel like you're reading a textbook, this is a good place to start, because it doesn't feel like you're reading a textbook, which, like I said, is not my favorite thing. I don't want to feel like I'm being lectured to. He does a really good job of kind of keeping that balance between telling a story but also making sure that it's relevant, because they are interviews of people who have committed crimes, but also putting in his own thoughts as well into what these people were really like and things like that. Like he does a really good job of kind of merging the two worlds together. I enjoyed this a lot. Like I said, the second other one, Talking with Psychopaths and Savages, that one's right here. That one I didn't really care for, but this one I really did enjoy. If you are interested in like murders and things like that, you really like crime and things, this would be a really good thing to read. But again, if you are not, keep that in mind. This does have pictures of some of the serial killers that he interviewed in it. I don't know if all the copies have that, but mine does. Yeah, this is something I don't typically read from nonfiction, but that one I actually enjoyed. A book that deserves all the hype it gets. So for me, I actually had to think about this for a second. I don't have any newer publishes that are like super popular, so I haven't read them. Like I do have 2 Colleen Hoover books. I've never read them, so I can't tell you if they're good or not. I have a lot of books on my TBR, like things that I want to purchase that are newer publishes and things like that, but I don't have anything, like I said, recent that like I own. So I kind of went back and thought about books that were really popular, and I didn't want to do something that was like a super click classic that everybody knows, like The Catcher in the Rye is one of my favorite books ever, but it's actually in this room somewhere. I didn't want to say that one because I felt like that was such an obvious type of publish. I wanted something that has been talked about relatively recently, but not super recent. I have like book talk recent is what I'm referring to. But I didn't want something that is classified as a classic, such as The Catcher in the Rye. So that I landed on this. This is one of my favorite authors ever. This is 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult, I think is how you pronounce her last name. I honestly don't know. This is a thicker book. I loved this. This has been banned from so many different schools and places and things like that. And it's, I see it a lot online, people talking about why it should be banned. I don't think it should be banned. It does have a sensitive topic in it, murder. It does involve kind of injustice. I don't want to say like exactly like why it was banned, because if you want to read it to figure that out, like I don't want to ruin it for you. But the back says, after years of cruel bullying from his classmates, Peter Houghton snaps one morning, and in 19 minutes, 10 residents of the town of Sterling are dead. When the case goes to trial, the reeling town is determined to seek justice for the innocents Peter killed. But as the trial unfolds, Peter's testimony casts light on the terrible role the residents of Sterling have played in turning a sweet, loving boy into a killer. And it isn't long before Sterling's illusions of innocence find themselves shattered forever. Has things in it that happen now, like things that happen now. Again, I don't want to like explicitly tell you what that is, because if you want to read it and find out, I don't want to ruin it for you. But this, I see why it was banned from schools, but at the same time, I don't think it should have been, because the things that occur in this book are things that happen to people in schools, in movies, in malls, excuse me, around the US specifically, because this is set in the US, but I'm also from the US, so I can't really speak for the entire world. But the things that happen in this book are things that actually happen, and things that really do affect people every day, and that have affected people for every day for years. So I think this should not have been banned, because it really does open the light as to, oh my God, like these are things that students, that customers, specifically students, because this is students, but like that they go through every single day, and what we have to think about on a day-to-day basis, just trying to live our lives here. I don't think this should have been banned. But besides that, this is a really good read. It's really sad. One of the saddest, I think, Jodi books I've read in particular. I've read a lot of her work. One of the saddest ones. If you're sensitive to things that, this isn't true crime, but if you're sensitive to things that happen, this may be more upsetting to you. But this is a really, really good read, and very upsetting, but very thought-provoking as well. And it's wonderfully written. Like I said, Jodi is one of my favorite authors. A book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. The book that I usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation is also by Jodi Picoult. This is Lone Wolf. This is my favorite book that I've read by her. I can't say that she's ever written, because I haven't read everything. I own a lot of her work. I think I'm missing like 7 or so publishes, but I want to get them all, but I don't think you can actually see any. They're mostly up here. Yeah, I'm just out of frame. This is one of my favorite books I've ever read. This is beautiful. So it says, when Luke Baxter is involved in a car accident, which leaves him in a coma, his family are gathered together against the odds, and they face an impossible dilemma. His daughter Kara is praying for a miracle. She will fight everything and everyone to save her father's life. His son Edward can't imagine that a man who once ran with wolves could ever be happy with a different life. But he hasn't spoken to Luke for 6 years. How can he know what his father would want? Somehow they must choose. Do they keep Luke alive, or do they let him go? This is a wonderful book. This also has thought-provoking things in it, and it will leave you thinking once you finish it. Like, that's how this is. A lot of Jodi's work is like that. I loved this. Like I said, this is one of my favorite books ever. This is one of the first recommendations that I give to people when they say, I need something that you enjoy, that you think other people would enjoy. Or when somebody comes to me and they said, I'm not a huge reader, but I want to get into reading. I want to read more. I want to know what you think would be a good place to start. I always recommend this. This is a really, like I said, it's an easier read, which I personally like, but it is told through different point of views. Like Luke, Kara, and I think Edward is even yeah, is even told in this book. And I do like when books do that. I know not everybody does, so that's kind of why I'm mentioning it, because if you don't like switching back and forth from different point of views, you may not like this. But it is so good. Again, it's more on the sad side, but I think this gives such a thought-provoking as to what you would do for somebody that you care about, or what you wouldn't do, or what is right to choose for somebody who can't choose for themselves, and things like that. This is wonderful for that. Like, this really does kind of put that in, like, okay, if this was somebody that I loved, what would I do? Like, what would the situation be? Like, how would I react? And I think that is why it's such a good read, and why so many people enjoy this. But I think that's one of the reasons why I personally enjoyed it as well. Wolves are also my favorite animal, so I'm a little biased there too, but I enjoyed this. Definitely think you guys should pick that up. A book that has your favorite characters. So this is kind of where I get into like a little bit of a series type thing, because they all go together, because they're a series, but they all go together and they all coincide. So there are 6 of them. I own all 6. They're one of my favorite series ever. It's so good. So that would be the Storm and Silence series by Robert Thier, I think is how you pronounce his last name. These are originally on Wattpad, and I read them on Wattpad, and then when I discovered that they had been published, I was over the moon. Like, I need it, I need it, I need it. They are slightly different than the Wattpad versions, but I personally don't mind that. I love this. So the first one is Storm and Silence. It is this one. They have that soft matte cover, which is my favorite, but also these are so good. Like, I love Lily to death. Like, she reminds me a lot kind of myself in a way, because I have been told I have an alpha female personality. I am assertive, I'm independent, I like things that she is. And then I love Mr. Ambrose to death. I know he's like a not likable character, like you're not supposed to like him, but you do. Like, I personally enjoy him. I think he's nothing but hilarious, and he reminds me a lot of just somebody who has been through a lot and who is kind of shy to open up, and I think that's pretty much who he is. But also, like, he has such a story to him, and the way that Robert has written the story between them interacting is just so good. So this is the first one, Storm and Silence. This is the thickest one. It says, freedom. That is what Lily Linton wants most in life. Not marriage, not a brood of squalling brats, and certainly not love. Thank you very much. But freedom is a rare comedy in 19th century London, where girls are expected to spend their lives sitting at home, fully occupied with looking pretty. Lily's at her wit's end until a chance encounter with a dark, dangerous, and powerful stranger changes her life forever. Enter the world of Mr. I think it's Ricard, I'm not sure, Ambrose, where the only rule is knowledge is power, is time is money. I think it's Ricard, or like Richard, but I'm honestly not sure. I love these, and I heard that book 7 is coming, and I honestly am so excited. I just recently discovered that there was a 6th book, and I bought it, and I'm in the middle of reading it, and I love it. I love it, I love it. I honestly couldn't choose which one's my favorite out of all of these. So this is the first one, like I said, Storm and Silence. And then the second one is In the Eye of the Storm. These are all like pretty much the same size. The only one that's really big is the first one, In the Eye of the Storm. I'm not gonna read the back of all of them, because obviously if you don't read the first one, I don't think the rest of them are gonna make sense. Like some series you can kind of do that, like with Tracy Crosswhite, you can read one and not read all of them and you'll still understand what's going on. These, they reference things in the past and you need to read them in chronological order. So this is the first one, and then the second one is In the Eye of the Storm. The third one is Silence is Golden. The next one is Silence Breaking, and then this one is Hunting for Silence. And then the last one that is currently published is the one that I'm reading right now and I'm almost done, is Storm of Bells. So love it. Love it, love it, love it. This one, like I said, I'm currently reading, so I'm gonna keep that one off to the side. I just wanted to bring it in because it goes with all of these. It goes with all of these. And again, they have that soft matte cover, which is my favorite, but I love these. I love the way Robert writes. Even on Wattpad, when I first discovered them, they were amazing, and I still love them, and they are my pride and joy. I can't decide if this or Tracy Crosswhite is like my favorite series, but they're really close and I like them for different reasons. So this is definitely more of like a romance type novel, so if you don't love that, then you probably wouldn't like these. And then a book that you wish you could live in. So a book that I wish I could live in for a maybe not the right reason is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This is I think the oldest book that I have here. This one, 1997, I think. That's what this says, 1997. 1977? I don't know. There's like 4 or 5 different dates in there, I'm not sure. But this one, I read a couple of the books after this one. This one's the only one that I personally like. I don't love Ender's Shadow. I don't love Ender in Exile, but I like this one. I wish I could live in this world because I think Ender is such an interesting character and I would like to get to know him better. I love Ender. I think that he has been put through so much that people misunderstand him a lot, and the movie's really good too. But this says, oh, these are just recommendations from the book. Or reviews. Oh, okay, that's nice. So we'll find it on Goodreads. Andrew Ender Wiggin thinks he is playing computer simulated war games. He is, in fact, engaged in something far more desperate. The result of genetic experimentation. Ender may be the military genius Earth desperately needs in a war against an alien enemy seeking to destroy all human life. The only way to find out is to throw Ender into ever harsher training, to chip away and find the diamond inside, or destroy him utterly. Ender Wiggin is 6 years old when it begins. He will grow up fast, but Ender is not the only result of the experiment. The war with the buggers has been raging for 100 years, and the quest for the perfect general has been underway almost as long. Ender's 2 older siblings, Peter and Valentine, are every bit as unusual as he is, but in very different ways. While Peter was too uncontrollably violent, Valentine very nearly lacks the capability for violence altogether. Neither was found suitable for the military's purpose, but they are driven by their jealousy of Ender and by their inbred drive for power. Peter seeks to control the political process, to become a ruler. Valentine's abilities turn more toward the subtle control of the beliefs of commoner and elite alike, though powerfully convincing essays. I think that's supposed to be through powerfully convincing essays. Hiding their youth and identities behind the anonymity of the computer networks. These two begin working together to shape the destiny of Earth, my camera stopped, an Earth that has no future at all if their brother Ender fails. So this is rated 4.3 stars on Goodreads. This is a really good book. I've read this book twice. I really enjoy it. I want to live in this world, not because of the war that's going on, but because I would like to meet Ender. I think he's a very interesting individual, especially towards the end of the book, just seeing him mature and grow. And I would like to kind of get more into his mind a little bit, like how it works and things. That's kind of why I want to live in this world. That's, I think, the only reason. So like I said, not maybe the best reason, but that's the reason nonetheless. I really enjoyed this. I think this is a good read for people who like, this is obviously more like sci-fi, but also people who like things that are more action-packed. This has a lot going on a lot of the time. I read this the first time when I was in 8th grade, and I read it again recently, and I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed it. The movie's really good. I think Asa Butterfield, I think that's how you pronounce his first name, was a fantastic pick for Ender. Like, I think that was just, that was casting done wonderfully, in my opinion. I love him as an actor, but I think he did such a good job, and Ender's Game is one of my favorite movies. I really enjoyed this book. I do prefer the movie, which doesn't happen very often, because I do think there are some pages in here that aren't necessarily needed, or some paragraphs, and it is a little confusing at first, but as you go through it, you get hooked onto some things, and it all does come together in the end. So if you have started this and you're like, I don't know what the hell is going on, just kind of bear with it for a little bit, and then it'll start making sense. Like I said, it does take a minute, but it's really good nonetheless. A book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. So that would be this one, The House by Danielle Steele. I have a lot of Danielle Steele's work as well. My goal is to get all of it, but I think she has like over 100 or something. Like, there's a ton. I have liked every book I have read by her. I've only read 4, so like it's not a ton, but 4 books, not bad either. So this book I really thought I wouldn't like especially when I was first reading it. I really expected to just not care for it. Like, I was like, this doesn't seem like something I'm going to enjoy. Like, it just, I wasn't into it. But the more I read it, the more I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I did see some of what happens in the end happening. Like, there is a lot of foreshadowing, and you're like, oh yeah, but there are also times where you're like, I just want this to speed up. Like, I just want this to come along. Like, come on. This is a little slower. Like, I think some of the pages in here didn't need to be in here. They're not so pointless to where like rip them out type of situation, but I don't think some of the pages needed to be in here. I think some of it could have just been summarized a little bit. But this says, perched on a hill overlooking San Francisco, the house was magnificent. Built in 1923 by a wealthy man for the woman he adored. For her and for this house, he would spare no expense and overlook no detail, from the endless marble floors to the glittering chandeliers. Almost a century later, with the once grand house now in disrepair, a young woman walks through its empty rooms. Sarah Anderson, a perfectly sensible estate lawyer, is about to do something utterly out of character. An elderly client has died and left her 2 gifts. One is a generous inheritance, the other a priceless message. To use his money for something wonderful, something daring, and in this old house surrounded by crumbling grandeur, Sarah knows just what it is. A respected attorney and self-described workaholic, Sarah had always lived life by the book, with a steady, if sputtering, relationship and a tiny apartment that has suited her just fine. Sarah cannot explain the force that draws her to the mansion and its history, to the story of a woman who once lived in the house, then mysteriously left it, to a child who grew up there, and, continue back page, a drama that unfollowed in war-torn France, and to a history she never knew she had. Taking the biggest risk of her life, Sarah enlists the help of architect Jeff Parker, who shares Sarah's passion for bringing the exquisite old house back to life. As she and Jeff work to restore the home's every detail, as one relationship shatters and another begins, Sarah makes a series of powerful discoveries about the true meaning of a dying man's last gift, about the extraordinary legacies that are passed from generation to generation, and about a future she only just beginning to imagine. Whew. Okay. This again is romance. Most of Danielle Steele work is romance. This is heavily romance. It's not, I guess maybe not heavily romance, but it definitely is romance. I thought I would not enjoy this book. Part of me is like unsure why, but the other part of me is like, okay, I didn't think I would like it because of the way it started. Like, the way it started, I was just not into it. Like, I was like, okay, like that's okay. But as it went on, I really enjoyed it and I really liked it. I ended up, I think, rating it 4 stars on Goodreads, I think. I really liked it. Again, I don't see a lot of people recommending Danielle Steele. I think her audience is a little bit more mature, but I personally enjoyed it and I think it was good. I didn't think I would like it, but I did. So, you know, here we are. A book that made you cry. So that would be this one, Sold by Patricia McCormick. This is really thin. It's really fast, quick read. This is so sad, and it's so sad because they are things that are happening in our world every single day that I have been lucky enough, and some of my friends and like we have been lucky enough to kind of not experience, but this happens every day for people around the world, and it is so heartbreaking to just think about and read about. It's heartbreaking, but the way that it ends is really nice. It's lovely. So I'm gonna read it to you, and I really do apologize if I pronounce any of these names wrong. I don't know. So Lakshmi is a 13-year-old girl who lives with her family in a small village in Nepal. Though she is desperately poor, her life is full of simple pleasures, like playing hopscotch with her best friend from school and having her mother brush her hair by the light of an oil lamp. But when the harsh Himalayan monsoons wash away all the family's crops, Lakshmi's stepfather says she must take a job to support her family. He introduces her to a glamorous stranger who tells her she will find her a job as a maid in the city. Glad to help, Lakshmi journeys to India only to learn the unthinkable truth. She has been sold into prostitution. An old woman named Momtas, I'm really sorry, rules the brothel with cruelty and cunning. She tells Lakshmi that she is trapped there until she can pay off her family's debt, then cheats Lakshmi of her meager earnings so that she can never leave. Gradually, Lakshmi forms friendships that enable her to survive in this terrifying world. And the day comes when she must make a decision. Will she risk everything for a chance to reclaim her life? This is really, really sad. Like I said, because of these are things that happen here. This did earn a national, I think, National Book Award finalist. It's good. It's really good, but it's very, very sad. Like I said, it's things that happen around the world that not everybody knows about. Like it's kind of something that it happens and it's swept under the rug, but that's not okay. And this definitely will leave you thinking and heartbroken. Like, it is so sad, but everybody I think should read this. And it's thin, so if you don't like really thick reads, this is good, but it's good, but it's really sad. And then lastly, a book you wish you could read for the first time again. That would be I Am Watching You by Teresa Driscoll. I just recently read this and I did not see the twist coming in this. This is a mystery crime thriller, and I'm learning that is one of my favorite genres. Thriller is something that I have been diving into this year, but I wish I could reread this because I did not see the twist coming in this. Like, I was literally shocked. Like, I was like, oh my god, that did not happen. Like, it was crazy in my opinion. So this says, when Ella Longfield overhears two attractive young men flirting with teenage girls on a train, she thinks nothing of it until she realizes they are fresh out of prison and her maternal instinct is put on high alert. But just as she's decided to call for help, something stops her. The next day, she wakes up to the news that one of the girls, beautiful green-eyed Anna Ballard, has disappeared. A year later, Anna is still missing. Ella is racked with guilt over what she failed to do, and she's not the only one who can't forget. Someone is sending her threatening letters that make her fear for her life. Then an anniversary appeal reveals that Anna's friends and family might have something to hide. Anna's best friend, Sarah, hasn't been telling the whole truth about what really happened that night, and her parents have been keeping secrets of their own. Someone knows where Anna is, and they're not telling, but they are watching Ella. This is so good. I haven't read anything else by this author, but I loved this. So, like, to the point where I would reread something. Like, I would read something that she'd written. This is really, really good. It is like almost, it gives me The Woman in the Window vibes, but better. So, like, if you've read that, it's a good book. It's not terrible, but it's really, really slow. It only gets good like the last half, but like this kind of gives a similar vibe to that, but this has more action, more mystery, more like what in the hell happened to this girl type thing. This is really, really good. So now that I've talked to you guys for over an hour. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I've been sitting here for over an hour. I am fully done with the book tag. The book tag. I think that's what it's called. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out together, but that is everything. And I would like to do more book related content on my channel. I'm not sure all that I'll do, but I would like to do more book related things, and I hope you guys are okay with that. Like I said, tutorials are still going to be happening, don't worry. Reviews are still going to be happening, but this is something that I love and that I recently have just been really into doing. Like I've been really into finishing books and things. Like I've read like 30 I think books this year or something. It's ridiculous, but I have been nose deep and I'm almost done with this one. I'm kind of putting it off because I don't want to finish it, but at the same time, like I want to finish it so I can move on. But yeah, that is everything that I had to talk about today. So let me know what your favorites are, or do this tag or something. I don't know. Have a good day. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later.